Welcome back to Switched to Linux. So today, what I want to talk about is how to avoid all cloud email servers. Now, this is a question I get a lot: is which emails, where's a good place to go to not use Gmail? Well, I've never actually used Gmail, other than I've had a few business instances where, working with the project, I had to have their own branded Google account at some point in time. I've used those, but I've never had a personal Gmail account and never plan on getting one. I used Hotmail well before Microsoft bought them, and so I had a couple Hotmail accounts laying around, but they don't get used a whole lot. The vastest majority of my email is actually all email done on my own servers. Now, of course, you contract these out. You can build a server in your closet and be named Hillary if you want. But generally ISPs, particularly, residential ISPs, kind of get a little cranky when you run mail servers. And so you probably don't want to do that. And it's probably best just to contract it out anyway. Now, is that still your email on someone else's server? So is that technically cloud? Possibly, but not really. So what we're going to talk about here today is, and the reason why that's not is nobody can really monitor what's going in and out of the system as you're doing that. Even the servers I have right now, because as if you've been following my videos, this week I moved all of my servers to a completely different company. Now, the former company that I was using, I did not have full root access. The servers that I have now, I have such root access, they cannot even get into them. If I need something done. Now I have a managed root server, so that means that I can contact them to do some basic stuff. But if I ever do that, I actually have to give them my root password, and I can change it at any time. They don't even have access to what's in that server. So, if some, government officials we want what's in the server, they could give them the server, but they still would need to go through me to get the login information anyway. So it's having your own server out there on the internet is a really great way to do that. And I'm using, I switched my servers over to A2 hosting, and I chose A2 because they are big enough to remain independent. They are not on the radar to be purchased by EIG. They're not owned or associated with EIG, and they hate EIG. That is the company you want to avoid. Look up EIG hosting prior to getting a server and see if that company is listed on EIG. Don't get it, because what they do is they buy up a bunch of hosting companies, and then they lay off half of the support staff. Support goes down the hill. All sorts of things go really bad. And so the kitty would like to come up here and say, "Don't use EIG. They suck." And so that's where I've had. Now, why was I with an EIG company? Because I was with a non-EIG company. EIG bought my hosting. My hosting went, so I went out to another company that also was not EIG. And then EIG bought them, and it went, and so I'm just like, and my final straw, now I've been having issues with some of the emails because at the EIG company, my servers were on a shared server, and and they weren't, they used to be really good at not having too many websites on a given server, but EIG's like, however many we can cram onto these servers means more money for us. And so you have several hundred websites all sharing a shared server, and then if one scammer gets on there, or one guy loads a porn site on there or something stupid like that, then all bets are off. You're blacklisted. And so you don't want that to happen. And so what I recommend doing is, wherever you want to get your server, you want to get a good server that is a big enough company independent from them. Now, some people have said InMotion hosting. I've had issues with InMotion in the past, but the ultimate reason, I think they've resolved a lot of those. The ultimate reason I did not go with InMotion is you have to purchase their packages years out in advance, the minimum of 1 year package. Whereas A2, you can purchase monthly, you can go 6 months, you can go, I think 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, then you'll get discounts. The more advance out in advance you can buy, the cheaper it's going to get. But for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to buy 2 years out at a time because it's going to take me too long to recoup the losses of that. And so I'd rather do a little bit, pay a little bit more, but spread the costs out a little bit, over a few different months. So you want to get what is called a VPS most likely. Now, you probably don't want one with root. I did one with root because the final reason that got me to move away from where I was, which was HostGator, by the way. I don't mind dropping their name. Avoid HostGator. They suck. Since the IG bought them, they suck. The problem is, as I'm getting ready for this book release, I wanted to put up a good store on my site, and since I do need to collect shipping data, if you want to buy that, I really want to put that on an SSL. And so I bought an SSL for the site last week. In fact, it was over 10 days now. I mean, it's Thursday the 5th. I bought the SSL Monday the 25th. And it took them until Friday to install it, and they didn't install it right. I go to the SSL version of the site. Nope, it says not configured correctly. And so I sent them an email saying, remove the bill, remove the invoice, I'm done with it. But the thing says that installing an SSL is literally pasting a few lines in the back of a WHM panel that you have root access to. Now, you probably don't need that much. You as a user, if you're not doing a lot of different things, you may not even need a VPS. You just need a good server that is going to do a good job of making sure the scammers stay off the system. But what I'm doing, because I do a ton of this and I have multiple accounts on these, is I wanted to get a WHM with a full VPS that I am the only one on that IP address. So I have 2 IP addresses. I'm the only one on those IP addresses. And I wanted full root access so I can get into the terminal. I can SSH in. I can, I can do whatever Linuxy stuff I want to do. And if I kill it, it's on me to fix for sure. But in my case, what I do is I just spin that guy down, spin up a new one. That's what you do. And so that's what I recommend. So you'd get a hosting control panel with cPanel. Now, you still don't want to use something like, GoDaddy, among others. You can get their control panels, and then they'll try and upsell you, the managed email. That's the same thing. It's cloud servers. We don't want that type of stuff. You want a type of system that is going to allow you to create your own email addresses to limit things in. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what I built. And so now I'm working off of a fake domain name and stuff. So your process is you purchase a domain name that you want. And then, maybe your name or whatever else it happens to be with that. Now, generally, for me, I keep the domain names and the hosting at different places, merely because most of your hosting companies are not also registrars, and I'm also a registrar, so you can buy domain names through me. And so with that being said, you want to get a domain name. Usually if you're just going to be an individual or one or two of these things, just pick up the domain name from the hosting company. A domain name is going to cost you, probably $10 to $15 a year. I would recommend getting domain privacy. Usually that's about a $10 a year add-on. And then your server, if you want a full VPS like I have, you're looking to pay $30 to $50 a month for it, which is a lot. Now for me, since I host a lot of people's websites, I sell hosting packages, so it ends up that my clients pay for the server. For you as an individual, it might make more sense to just do a shared hosting system, and all that means is that other people are on that as well. Generally, you don't have a lot of problems with those as long as it's a reputable company. If it's EIG, you're going to run into problems eventually. But if it's InMotion, if it's A2, SiteGround has actually been a site hosting server that I've seen on Radar lately. SiteGround has some pretty good stuff as well. And there's a few other still good ones out there. GoDaddy, GoDaddy's interesting. There was a point in time I was like, absolutely avoid GoDaddy at all costs. Some of that was their servers sucked. Some of it was immorality in their marketing. For a long time, they used a lot of sex to sell marketing, and I'm not into that. You start showing me marketing like that, and I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with you as a company. Now, after a while, their marketing cleaned up and they just went back with regular stuff. And then for about a 2-3 year period of time, they were really responsive. Their servers started getting really good, and I had a lot of good luck on them. And then I started to have some problems again. And so I'm no longer recommending GoDaddy. There was a period of time I did recommend them. Then there was a period of time I didn't. You know, I'm to the point right now, don't do GoDaddy. Do SiteGround, InMotion, A2, and there's a few other decent ones out there. You want to avoid your old sites that have never upgraded, like 1-in-1 that's so antiquated it's crazy. You want to look for cPanel. You want a cPanel, that's what this video is going to cover. So what I did here is I spun up a cPanel at the fictional domain example.com. So, you know, if you try and go to example.com, you're not gonna get anywhere. So what I have here at example.com, let me go ahead and shift some stuff around here. All right. So if I go to example.com right here, you'll see that that it's nothing. And that's because I actually don't have a website. I could have a website here, but I don't. Now, most of your cPanel accounts, if you just do /cPanel, you will go to your cPanel login. If you do /webmail, you will go to a webmail login. And cPanel has 3 basic webmail clients installed. And so if you happen to be out and about and you don't have your email on your phone or whatever, or you're at a buddy's house, you could go right to your site /webmail and you can log in right here at your webmail. Now, I don't have an email configured yet, so there's no way I'm going to get logged into there right now. So I'm going to go to cPanel, and then you'll see your cPanel. And then what I have here is you just use your login. Usually it's the first 8 characters of your domain name, and then paste. Now, you also, like, the advantage of doing like SiteGround is they'll have free SSLs. Mine should, and I don't know if this one will have it in there or not. So we're going to go ahead and try it and see what happens. Oh, except I have to hit cPanel. Okay, so that's telling me my connection's not secure. I never bothered to set up the SSL in here. I could have, I never did. So let's just not do that version yet. We'll have a look at that if we need to later. So we're going to log in, which is example, and enter my password, which hopefully is still in my clipboard, and that is correct. All right, so here I'm logged in. Now this is the paper lantern. This is the new cPanel light look. I really hate it, but that's okay. I'm slowly getting used to it. So in here you have a lot of different things. The important parts for us right now is down in your emails. Now, various different accounts will have limits on certain things. I'm using a system here that doesn't limit my emails, doesn't limit filters, doesn't limit forwards, doesn't limit pretty much anything. And frankly, that's just what I've done for this particular account. Since I have a full web hosting control panel, I can configure this any way I want, but that's quite okay. So what we're going to do here, now you can also, if you want a few different domains, most of your things will have what are called add-on domains. And an add-on domain is where you can have multiple different domains coming in your system. Now, the first thing you are probably going to want to do is come on down here and look for an authentication or an SPF editor and go ahead and click on this. Now, I have already enabled this, but I'm going to show you what this is. This will enable let's see. There we go. This will enable the DKIM, which will prevent other sites from attempting to spoof off of your server, and it will enable SPF to make sure, and what this does is it makes sure that any email coming from your server is linked back to this server so that you have the ability to kind of block spam. So I've already enabled these, and I have this enabled in my web hosting control panel, so every new cPanel account I have will have that turned on. You may not, so you want to double check that the very first time you log in here. Just make sure that those 2 options are enabled. You're going to want them. And then what you do is you come down to your email accounts down here, and then you'll see that it does @example.com. Now, if I have added an add-on domain to this, then I will have a drop down over here where I can pick which one of the domain names here I want to use. So I'll just go ahead and say email @example.com. You want to give it a password. They do have password generators. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Now I'm actually keeping a running list of these passwords here. And these are completely useless, so it doesn't matter if you see them or not, because this server is going to be spun down when we're done here, and you can't really access these anyway. So make sure that you use the password, copy this. This will allow you to do that. And then now you probably want to change your quota. Now for my clients, I have them set at quotas because the way we generally use email these days is Google has deeply spoiled us because we're no longer intentional with anything in our life anymore, and we don't ever delete emails. And so I limit the boxes out because if basically if one user gets big email attachments and never cleans their server out, they'll stop using that email. Now, if I let that go unlimited, some one person could shut down their own server because they're not clearing out their emails even though nobody else is. So I usually cap those, but for my personal emails, I completely unlimited that. Okay, there's a send welcome email with client configuration instructions. I'm usually going to turn that off. Go ahead and create account. So now you'll see that that's in the list, email@example.com. Now, the reason I didn't send that is I'm already creating the email from inside of here. So I'm going to come up here and hit your setup your email client. This is going to give you a lot of instructions. So whether you're using Mac OS, iOS, Windows Live Mail, I'm very pleased to see they updated these. For the longest time, for a good 7 years, cPanel had never updated this, and you'd see like literally you'd see in here Outlook Express. It's like, which hasn't been used since Vista. So very pleased to see that they'd updated these. And now, so we have various options. Now, depending on the type of server that you have, since I'm using a full VPS that I have control over, every one of my domains can use mail.example.com even as its own SSL system. If you're using a shared server, then your SSL option is likely going to be something different. So you want to come down into these. I always just use the manual settings. I don't bother with anything else. Now, there is a way that the server will report out to any system. So if you go on to a phone and you hit the email address and hit the auto configure, it will usually know how to auto configure that, and it will usually default to the SSL. As long as your server runs an SSL somewhere, you should use the SSL options. For a long time, they never really worked, but in the last 3 or 4 years, they've really been well and supported. Now, the numbers that are generally consistent, most across the board, port 995 is going to be an SSL POP3, 993 is going to be an SSL IMAP, and 465 is going to be an outgoing SSL. The incoming are also generally standard for non-SSL, 143 and 110. The one that will frequently change, you got to watch out for, is outgoing server. Sometimes this is 25, sometimes this is 26. This particular server is 2525. Now, just because it's one of these, it might have a range of ports that you don't know. For example, the last server I was at, the port was 25, but for whatever stupid reason, Comcast blocks port 25. So I actually had to use port 26. And so actually I've had to go in. This is the only setting I had to change since I migrated everything. Everything stayed the same, except I had to go and change all my outgoing server ports to 2525. And so make sure you keep these. And this information, if you are logging in and creating an email system, because the advantage of this is you can use this with any of your account systems on your Android or your iPhone. You can use this with, I prefer on an Android phone, I use Canine Mail, which is a free and open source app that you can get. You can also do this with Evolution, with Thunderbird for you Linux guys, for the Windows guys. These will work just fine on the Windows Mail. So these will work pretty much anywhere. Now, if you are using one of the things like the Windows Mail servers or stuff like that, you can just click on these, and this is going to download a file that you just open that file up on that computer, and it's going to auto-configure the ports for you. So these are very handy. Use the SSL when you can. Now, the difference between POP3 and IMAP is POP3 will check the server and it'll download a copy of the message directly onto your system. An IMAP is a constant configuration. If you ever need your email in an offline situation, you want to use POP3. If you are always connected to an internet system and you want to delete stuff easily on the go, you use IMAP. I'm not a fan of IMAP, but there's cases where I use it. what I usually do, because I have so many different computers in the office that will all do these various settings, is I actually have one computer in the office that is set to 10 days after the email arrives, it will delete it from the server. That way, any other device that I need can still access the email within 10 days, and after 10 days, I probably don't need it on that given device. And so that's what I do here. So just coding in, creating the email there, and then you can use the auto configuration. So there's a few ways to do that. The first is, depending on the app you're using, and I know Canine Mail this works, I know Thunderbird this works, I do not believe it works in Evolution. I'm pretty sure the Windows Mail works, I'm pretty sure the Apple Mail works. You simply go into the system, hit new account, enter your email address, and it will usually auto-configure all of the rest of the ports. Now, if you are getting authentication, double check these numbers here, your ingoing and outgoing servers. These will change from server to server. Like, for example, this one here, it's mail dot the first part of the domain dot the last part of the domain. You might see, like my last one, HostGator, if you are on a shared HostGator to access a SSL on a shared HostGator on a reseller account, it's sc300.websitewelcome.com, which doesn't look very professional either. So that's another great example, or a great reason to use this particular server instead of theirs, is it does look a lot better. The configuration is a whole lot easier, because if I want to change this from an SSL to a non-SSL, I just have to change the port. So that is how I do it. And this is actually how I run all my emails. I don't generally use the online webmail platforms, but let's go ahead and show you how to do that. So in your accounts here, if you need to change your password, you can do this. Now, another thing I'll mention, some cPanels, your root password for your cPanel will also work for any email address on that account. It's a way that an account owner could access any employee's email on a server. I think that this one does not. I'm pretty sure it does not, because I know I've had to go through with my clients, and anybody that was using the server access password had to change their password to one directly linked to the email address. However, I think that this is probably a little bit safer for the individual user, and that there's a way a user could change their password, and we'll get into that in a few minutes here, so that really what you could do is you can set up your password and then give that information to your employees, and your employee can go in and set their own password. Now, the other thing is, if you hit this more down here, you can suspend an email, you can suspend login, suspend incoming mail, access your webmail, and then there's configures, calendars. This is actually a new one. Let me have a quick look at this. All right. Yeah, this is actually one I've never used before. Okay, well, anyway. I'll have to look into that one later. Let's go back over here. What we're going to do here is I'm going to show you the webmail, access the webmail. Now, once we're already logged in, it should log in automatically for us. Okay, so when you first log in, okay, yeah, I got it. You have three options. If I remember correctly, if you're on a mobile device, I want to say Horde has the best mobile platform. Usually I use Roundcube if I'm on a desktop system. So, this one does not look very good on a mobile device, because this is about what you get. But if you use the other one, then you have the option. Now, if you come up to the very top in the upper right, there is your example up here. You can change between which one of the systems you're using, and it doesn't matter which one of these you use. All of your email will be there. It's not like it stores in one and not in the other. It will use automatically, so you can switch between those. If you want to set up autoresponders, you can go ahead and set them up right over here, so you can create the autoresponder for your particular account. You can manage once again, this is a new feature that I have no idea how to use this. That's brand new, and I've never done anything with it. Password and security. This is where you can change your password. So usually what I'm going to do, okay, there you go. So there you go. You can link your account credentials to an external authentication. So if you clicked this onto the cPanel, then you could link this email address to that. So it looks like my server does have that functionality. It just has to be something you need to link. But here you can come up and you can change your password around. Of course, if I were running this production, I would have went through and set up the SSL, so I'm not getting this, which is a safer way to go. Let's see. Contact information here. So if you want to enter other address information, you can go ahead and do that. Email filters. You can create new filters for blocking, or I believe you can also send things to different folders on an IMAP system. A POP3 generally is just going to pull everything in and dump it to an inbox, and IMAP will actually sync folders that you have set up on your server. Forwarders, so if you're wanting your email to also go somewhere else, you can go ahead and set that up. And then track delivery is, let's see, I believe this one will show you, it'll have the ability to turn on if you have said, hey, send me a notification of this, you can go ahead and do that, and that will give you that information back. All right, so now let's go ahead and just log out of the webmail, and I'm just going to close out of everything there, and we're going to pull this guy back up, and we're going to go back to example.com/webmail. So now we're not logged in. You enter your email, which is email@example.com, and then enter your password, which hopefully is still the right one in my clipboard. So it says it's successful. So down here, once you first log in, if you need information on how to set anything up, you can come right on down here. You can have all your configuration settings over here. So if you want to send these to any given email address, go ahead and enter that, and that'll send that in there, which is very useful for system admins who can come in and just send this out, and I can literally enter your email address for how to set up your other email address, and I'll link to this page. You can select which one of these you want, and usually you might come in here first and go ahead and just change your password. So you can access this system from any computer or any smart device without any problem at all. And then, you can use this to set it up. So now we have a way that you can run your email online. Now like I said, the way I have mine set up, every 10 days it clears email off the server, which means that if you're a privacy-focused guy, even if some warrant comes through and they say, we want everything on this guy's information on this guy's server, take all you want. Nothing there. There's no record of the email that I have because it clears every 10 days. They'd have to grab the information from my individual devices that has my email stored. And that's another reason I do this, so that there's not boatloads and boatloads and boatloads of cloud emails floating out there. And so this is how I use cPanel to manage all my emails, and I run like 25 or some odd emails out of cPanels using this methodology. So let me just go ahead and go back into cPanel here. I am going to need to grab my other password for this one. I think this is my cPanel password. I'm curious. I want to see if... Nope. See, I don't have that auto-configured. If I was thinking if I had my server auto-configured, then it would automatically set up an SSL. It might take a few minutes because I'm using Komodos for that. So let's see. Well, let me see what else there is in here. Well, you happen to have one of these. Yeah, if you need a place to store some files as well, you can create an FTP account and just store files up here on your server. And you can store them in such a way that they're not even accessible online. Let me show you how. Going into your web server here, you have the ability to upload a file into this directory, and nothing here is accessible from the internet. Right? So if you wanted to store up here somewhere, maybe you have a list of passwords, which if you did this, you definitely want it on some type of encrypted or at least password protected file. You could drop it here, and this is not accessible because the only place where anything is accessible is inside this public HTML folder. So inside of here, if you put it here, it could be accessible from the internet. If you go up and you put it up here above this public HTML, anything that is up here is not available to the internet to see. And you have the ability to put something right here. So if you need to use this for some offline storage, you could go ahead and do that. You could store it right up here. Let's see. So that would be something something handy to use. Let's see, databases. Okay, I guess another thing is if you want to have one of these set up for your email and for security, another site somewhere else, you can come into Zone Editor, and the domain could be controlled here where all your email goes, but it points a website somewhere else. We'll do that on another video if people want to know how. Let's see. I've actually never seen encryption in here either. Let's see what encryption looks like. Yeah, some of these are things that are either brand new or I've just never had on the crummy servers I've had before. Metrics, security, let's see. I guess that's all I really want to talk about here for the cPanel. So this is how you can use a cPanel system. Like I said, the most secure way to do this is to run your own VPS where you're the only one on that particular private server. That does get expensive, so you probably don't want to do that. But a shared server, doing this on a shared server on a reputable company, not a problem. I would have no problem with that at all. So hopefully though this has been helpful for you in how I do email. So and the reason I want to do this video here is to show you that you asked me what's a good alternative to Gmail. This. I don't use cloud emails otherwise. I think Proton Mail is pretty good. To my understanding, it's free if you only access it via Webmail. So if you want to access it with any client like Evolution or Thunderbird or on your phone's app or whatever else, you probably have to pay for it at that point in time. I've no doubt it's good and secure. But frankly, I'm very happy with the cPanel setup, honestly. So with that, thanks for watching. If you would like to help support what we are doing here at Switch to Linux, you can go to switchtolinux.com/support, and you can learn about the ways you can help us along. The more support I get here, the more time I can spend on videos, the more quality videos we can get. So with that being said, thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.